Right now, in the next 10 minutes, someone is going to judge you completely. Your intelligence, your trustworthiness, whether you're worth their time, and they're going to do it in under a second, before you've said a single word that matters. You won't see it happen. They won't even know they did it. But the decision will already be made, and almost nothing you do afterward will fully undo it. This isn't a guess. It's one of the most repeated, most unsettling findings in modern psychology. And here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. A man figured this out 500 years before anyone ran a single experiment to prove it. No lab, no data, no funding, just a disgraced, exiled diplomat sitting alone with nothing left but a pen, watching people with an honesty almost nobody else was willing to use. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote it down in 1513. Modern science didn't catch up and confirm it until the 21st century. And that's not the only thing he got right. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you 5 things this man understood about human psychology, including your psychology, before there was ever a science to prove them. One of them is going to explain a moment from your own life that you've never fully understood until right now. Quick disclaimer before we start. This is an educational breakdown of historical writing and general psychology, not professional or clinical advice. Stay with me. By the end of this, you'll never look at a first impression, a small favor, or a room full of people the same way again. Let's begin. Part 1. The First Impression Trap. Machiavelli wrote something that sounds almost too obvious to matter at first glance. Men in general judge more by appearances than by reality, because everyone can see, but few can truly know. Hold on to that line. We're going to prove, with real data, just how literally true it is. At the time, this was simply an observation about how subjects perceived their rulers, that people rarely dig past the surface, forming quick judgments and rarely revisiting them. 450 years later, psychologists ran an experiment that confirmed this with almost eerie precision. Researchers showed participants unfamiliar faces for just 1/10 of a second, barely long enough to register consciously, and asked them to judge traits like competence and trustworthiness. Then they compared those instant judgments to judgments made after unlimited viewing time. The results were nearly identical. People given all the time in the world barely revised their first impression at all. The first 1/10 of a second did almost all the work. This connects to what psychologists now call the halo effect, and it means appearance isn't one factor among many in how you're judged. For most people, most of the time, it's nearly the entire judgment, locked in before real evidence even arrives. Machiavelli's advice to rulers was blunt. Since people judge you by appearance long before substance, appearance isn't vanity, it's strategy. Now keep that in mind, because the next thing he figured out is even harder to believe he got right. Part 2. The Reciprocity Trap. Machiavelli wrote extensively about debts and obligations, how a favor given creates a pull toward repayment, and how that pull can be deliberately used to quietly bind people to you. For centuries, this sat as a clever but unproven political observation. Then, in the 1970s, a psychologist designed one of the most famous experiments in the history of the field to test it directly. Researchers had a stranger hand out small, unsolicited gifts, just a can of soda, to random participants in a waiting room. Later, that same stranger asked those participants for a favor, buying raffle tickets. People who'd received the small, unsolicited gift bought roughly twice as many tickets as people who received nothing. Twice as many, from a can of soda nobody asked for, and that cost almost nothing. This is now called the reciprocity principle, one of the most consistently replicated findings in all of social psychology. It explains free samples in marketing, the quiet obligation created by unsolicited favors, and why the person who helps before you ask often gains more influence over you than the person who simply gives you what you requested. Machiavelli described this exact mechanism centuries earlier in the context of political favor-giving. He called an unearned debt a leash, even when the person wearing it can't feel it at all. Remember that feeling next time someone helps you before you've asked. We're about to see how deep this pattern goes. Part 3. The fear of loss. This next one connects to something explosive we covered on this channel before, but the scientific confirmation is so specific it's almost unsettling. Machiavelli's most famous line, "Better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both," was, underneath the politics, a precise claim about motivation. He argued the threat of losing something reliably produces more consistent behavior than the promise of gaining something. In 1979, two psychologists formalized this exact idea into prospect theory, one of the most cited frameworks in behavioral economics, eventually earning a Nobel Prize. Their core finding: losses are felt roughly twice as intensely as equivalent gains. Losing $100 hurts about twice as much as finding $100 feels good. This asymmetry, now proven across hundreds of studies and real financial data, explains exactly why Machiavelli's rulers, who governed through consequence, maintained more consistent order than rulers who governed purely through generosity. Same underlying mechanism, 5 centuries apart, once through political observation, once through a Nobel Prize. He never used the phrase loss aversion. He didn't need modern vocabulary. He'd already watched it play out enough times, in real courts and real kingdoms, to describe the mechanism exactly. Part 4. The power of the group. Here's the one that might disturb you the most, because it's happening to you more often than you think. Machiavelli wrote that people rarely act as pure individuals, they act as members of a group, and their judgment shifts depending on which group they currently feel part of. He observed people supporting decisions surrounded by allies that they'd have rejected completely alone, and abandoning positions the instant the group around them abandoned it first. This sounds like a passing political observation. It isn't. In the 1950s, a psychologist ran one of the most famous experiments in social psychology to test this exact claim, using something as simple as the length of lines on a card. Participants were asked an obvious question: which of 3 lines matched a reference line, while seated among actors, instructed to confidently give the wrong answer. In roughly a third of trials, the real participant went along with the group's clearly wrong answer, contradicting the evidence right in front of their own eyes. A third of people changing an objectively correct answer just because everyone around them said something different. Machiavelli described conformity pressure 400 years before psychology gave it a name. He understood that controlling what a group says out loud is often more powerful than controlling what any individual actually believes, because most people, under group pressure, will quietly abandon their own perception rather than stand alone against it. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you did that without even noticing? Part 5. The mask effect. This last one connects directly to something we've talked about before, but the science behind it deserves its own spotlight, because it might be the most revealing of all 5. Machiavelli observed that people behave dramatically differently depending on whether they believe they're being watched, that the presence of an audience changes behavior more than almost any stated moral principle ever does. Modern psychology calls this the audience effect. In one well-known line of research, simply placing a picture of a pair of eyes near an honesty box, used for informal office payments, like a coffee fund, significantly increased how much money people actually left, compared to a neutral image in the exact same spot. Nobody was actually watching. A picture of eyes was enough to change real behavior. This is strange, almost uncomfortable, because it reveals something Machiavelli understood clearly. Much of what we call character is behavior calibrated to the presence or absence of observation, more than it's a fixed internal trait. People aren't necessarily less honest by nature, they're highly sensitive to whether honesty currently feels monitored. Machiavelli leaned directly into this with his rulers, arguing that the credible sense of being watched maintained order more reliably than moral appeals ever could. Not because people are inherently dishonest, because behavior tracks perceived observation far more consistently than it tracks abstract virtue. Part 6. Why he got this right without a lab. By now, you might be wondering how one exiled diplomat, with no scientific method available to him at all, anticipated 5 separate, independently verified findings from modern psychology. It isn't magic, it isn't luck, it's method, just not the method we usually associate with science. Machiavelli's real technique was radical honesty about observed behavior, stripped completely of how he wished people behaved. Most political philosophy before him described an idealized human, generous, principled, consistent, and built theories of governance around that fantasy. Machiavelli refused. He watched actual rulers, actual betrayals, actual crowds, and wrote the pattern exactly as it occurred, even when it was uncomfortable. That's the same core discipline underneath the scientific method itself. Observe what actually happens, not what should happen, and trust the pattern over the wish. He didn't have peer review or statistical significance. He had something almost as rare, decades of unflinching, close-range observation, recorded without the comforting distortions almost everyone else was adding automatically. Part 7. What this means for you. Here's why none of this is just historical trivia. Every one of these 5 mechanisms is still actively shaping your life today, whether you're paying attention or not. People are still judging you in a tenth of a second before they know anything real about you. Small favors are still creating quiet debts you may not have consciously registered. Threats of loss are still moving you faster than promises of gain. Group pressure is still nudging your stated opinions more than you'd like to admit. Your own behavior is still shifting, in small ways, based on who you believe is watching right now. This isn't meant to make you cynical about people, including yourself. It's meant to do exactly what Machiavelli was doing in the first place. Replace the comfortable version of how people behave with the accurate one, so you're operating on reality instead of a flattering guess. The people who move through the world most effectively aren't the ones who pretend these 5 mechanisms don't exist. They're the ones who understand them clearly enough to notice when they're being used on them, and honest enough with themselves to notice when they're using them on someone else. Closing. Machiavelli never called himself a psychologist. He never claimed he was predicting a science that wouldn't exist for another 400 years. He just refused to look away from what he actually saw in front of him. That's the real lesson hiding underneath all 5 of these findings. The most accurate understanding of people rarely comes from theory or from wishful thinking. It comes from watching closely and having the nerve to write down the truth even when it isn't flattering. This week, pick just one of these 5: first impressions, reciprocity, loss aversion, group conformity, or the audience effect, and watch for it quietly running in your own life for a few days. I promise you, you'll catch it happening faster than you expect. If one of these 5 hit differently than you expected, tell me in the comments which one it was. I read every single one. And if you want the next deep dive the moment it drops, subscribe, because next time we're covering 3 more things Machiavelli understood before science caught up, including one about deception that almost everyone gets completely wrong. I'll see you in the next one.